So part 5 is going to consist of animation and possibly a few other Blu-rays at the end if I have enough time left, or well, rather if it doesn't take long enough for me to talk about these animated films, I'll just include a few others at the end. I do have a few more animated films that I haven't gotten around to seeing yet, and I was waiting to make this video until I had seen those, but I haven't really found the right time. I've been wanting to watch other things instead, so I'm just gonna make this part anyway, and then we'll have to talk about the rest of them later on. But we do have quite a few animated films. I'm gonna start with one that I have been very intrigued with for a long time, and there was never a good release of it. I don't know, there may have been a foreign DVD, I don't even know from where, but I've seen a DVD somewhere. I don't know if it's... well, anyway, I never bought it until now, when it was released on Blu-ray. It's called Mind Game. I don't know if this looks like anything all that interesting based on the cover, and I haven't really seen anyone picking this up, but if you haven't, if you like anime, please buy this. Just buy it and just watch it and just be amazed. I mean, there's nothing that can really prepare you for this film. There is no film I've seen in my life that is as visually crazy, intense as this. Nothing. I don't think so. Anyway, it's a 1 hour 40-minute long film, and throughout this rather, I mean, it's not a short film, but it's just a constant bombardment of unique visual ideas and very fast-paced animated sequences that I sat back watching this in complete awe of the animators, because I don't even know how much time it takes, first of all, to animate a film, you know, with this much stuff happening in it, but then to come up with all these new animation styles. I mean, there's one part where they seem to have been inspired by Vincent van Gogh. There's like a train going up, and it's just beautifully it's just unlike anything I've seen. And there's a lot of things like that, a lot of new styles that they throw at you once in a while, and yeah, it just never seems to breathe. I mean, there are a few moments where it breathes, so to speak, but I don't know, man. It's just an incredible achievement that I think more people should see. It's by a guy, Masaki Yuasa. This is a release by All the Anime, by the way, or Anime Limited, whatever they're called. I mean, it's even if this is the only thing you've done, like, it's a pretty amazing achievement. But he's done a bunch of other things too. In fact, one of the things that I have, one of those things that I haven't seen yet, is a series from him, and he's done a bunch of things. So he seems to be very, very productive, and very talented for sure. I just cannot recommend this film enough. If you like new visual ideas, if you like being taken into a different world, if you like, you know, yeah, if you like that, then this is, I'm struggling for words. That's not uncommon, but still, this is truly a film that I'm really struggling to come up with the right words for, because there's nothing like this. And I know that I'm hyping it up, but if there's no way you're gonna check this out and be let down and feel like I hyped it up too much. Absolutely not. It's deserving of all that hype and more. It might not be to everyone's liking. That's another thing. I mean, that's another, you know, sure, that may be, but in terms of just a crazy animated film, I think you'll enjoy that if you typically like those films. Anyway, this next one, speaking of interesting visual ideas or styles, this one I really like the style of. It's called The Boy and the World. This is a Swedish DVD that I found very cheap. It's a Brazilian animated film. I think this was nominated for an Oscar, yes, but I haven't really heard too many people talking about it. It's a really beautiful film about this boy. I think he goes on the searching for his father. It's almost as if you're watching it from above. It's not really a three-dimensional film. Maybe some sequences are, but it's like you're seeing a two-dimensional painting that's come to life. Sort of very suitably childlike kind of stick figure characters, and some of the colorings aren't perfect, like they're outside of the line, which sort of makes sense because he's a child and he sees this world for the first time with his eyes, and so it makes sense that the world looks kind of rough in a way. But it doesn't all look. I mean, like Mind Game, it's a completely different genre, I guess. I mean, they're both animated films, but the story is different. The feeling of the film is definitely different. But it also has all these, or at least a few, not to the same extent that Mind Game does, but at least a few interesting visual ideas that you really can't achieve any other way than animation. I love that about animation, that you have complete creative control over what you're seeing. Like if you want to film a waterfall in real life, you have to go find a waterfall and film it. But in animation, you can just, if you're talented, you can just create it yourself. So I love that that kind of total control that the animator has, and so they're really able to bring you into their world. You don't have to look at it with the eyes of our world or whatever. You don't have to think about things in the same way. You can just let the film take you wherever it wants to take you. There's a greater suspension of disbelief, I guess, when you're watching animation, because it's not our world. So anyway, that was really good. I actually thought about rewatching it like the next day, but I just usually can't really justify rewatching films that often. There's so much I want to see for the first time, but I can definitely see myself revisiting that many more times. Then I picked up My Life as a Courgette, or also known as My Life as a Zucchini. It's a pretty short, just over 1 hour long, French animated film. Also a little bit childlike in its animation. It's a really touching film, actually. This one, there are certainly scenes that are visually gorgeous to look at, but it's more about the plot, it's more about the characters and how it comes together in the end. It really moved me at the end. It wasn't my favorite as I was watching it. It didn't feel like a new favorite or anything like that. But when the ending came around, it really I wouldn't say got to me, but I would say that it definitely moved me. So yeah, definitely a very good animated film. This next one I just kind of randomly found. I like Going in Blind. This is also from all the anime. Yeah, I like finding weird, interesting movies that I've never heard of before, checking them out, going in blind. This one is called Belladonna of Sadness, which I would have to watch again to really give a fair review of, but it's a really nice release here. It's got a slip box and then the keep case and a booklet and some art cards. It's a really graphic film. It says here, contains strong sexual images and sexualized violence. It is definitely an 18, and it starts with still images, and it uses still images a lot. You've seen that before, where you'll hear a soundtrack or something happening, an event, maybe people screaming and running, but you'll only see a still. Maybe there's like a little, maybe they've moved the camera across the image, but it doesn't move. So it does that in the beginning, and I was afraid that it was going to do that for the whole film, but it doesn't do it for the whole film. But it does also use a bunch of visual ideas. It's a really interesting film. definitely want to return to and think about. You know, it cannot, you know, it can't happen every time that you just fall in love with something, and I suppose I didn't fall in love with this exactly, but I'm willing to give it another watch in the future. But yeah, it's a really great release of this. It's a really great release, and I like what they're doing. I mean, I haven't seen too much anime outside. I mean, I've seen animated films, obviously, but in terms of anime from Japan, which that one is, well, it's different visually, but it's still anime, I guess you would say. In terms of that, I haven't seen too much outside of Studio Ghibli. So I like that they give really good releases to some of these movies that haven't been released before. This next one, it might seem like blasphemy, but it was good. I mean, the story was better than the animation, but I was sort of expecting it to be the other way around. It's called Fantastic Planet, and yeah, the main reason why I watch animated films, why I'm such a fan of it, is not so much that not so much because of the storytelling, but it's more just because of the visuals. It's like a moving painting. And you know, you can definitely, obviously, tell great stories with animation, but to me, that's secondary. And this one, you know, I didn't really respond to the animated style, which might sound odd to people, but it just has has a certain style that I just wasn't my favorite. But the story is very interesting. Certainly, you can certainly find several allegorical or metaphorical meanings. And once again, I mean, with all these films, they're definitely worth returning to. So yeah, but it's a little bit of a shame that I didn't like it more than I did, because it is one that I had been wanting to see for quite a while. But alright, so that really didn't take very long at all. I'm gonna move on to a few other things that I've been watching. I'm gonna start with a few Arrow releases. This one I've shown before, Buckaroo. I'll show this one too. Well, Big Trouble in Little China. I had these before. I had such a good time with this. I had never seen it before, but it's a John Carpenter film with Kurt Russell. Just so much fun. It's, you know, truly the definition of a fun film that just entertains. You know, it's yeah, it was great. I mean, so many great so many great sets, and some things that the movie throws at you which you're not really expecting necessarily, like this big monster creature that just comes out of the wall at one point, which I wasn't really expecting, and I love things like that. Yeah, just a great sense of location in this Chinatown and the subterranean parts of this place. Yeah, really great one. And because of that, I also watched this one shortly after, The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai Across the Eighth Dimension, which I have to be honest, I wasn't really a big fan of this. It had a lot of different ideas thrown together into one, but I'm not sure if they really married all that well, or if they really came together all that well. It seemed like a bunch of different ideas thrown together more than... I mean, sometimes you'll have a few different genres or a few different styles, and the filmmaker is able to make something new out of it. But with this one, it didn't feel like something new. It just felt like a collection of all these weird influences, and maybe some people like that, but I thought it was okay. I'm not opposed to giving it a second watch at some point, but it really wasn't as entertaining. I wasn't really quite as entertained by it as I was hoping that I would be. But anyway, The Thing. Why am I talking about The Thing? It was in the... I don't know. You know, I just put things... I put things that I've seen in the piles here, and sometimes I put things that I have talked about before, and sometimes when I make these videos I don't know, I don't really rehearse, I just turn the camera on and start talking. And this one was in the pile apparently. Well, I knew that it was, but I guess I'm not sure if I really need to talk about the thing again. But I rewatched it. Well, I guess, yeah, you know what, I haven't actually shown this edition before, so I don't think so anyway. So I guess I would have shown it anyway. Alright then, sorry about that. This I had on DVD many years ago, and then I bought the Blu-ray, and then I bought the Arrow limited edition. I bought it day one, but then there was some problem with the shipping. It was shipped back to the warehouse, and then I couldn't get it because it was out of print, and I couldn't ask them to ship it again. I had to reorder it, but you know, it's out of print, so I couldn't reorder it. So that was definitely frustrating. So I got the regular Arrow edition instead, which has all the same special features, but it's just, you know, a little kind of flimsy, cheap release when you know that there's a really nice limited edition. But it's okay. I mean, I'm not too bothered. But I mean, I wouldn't have been bothered if I missed out on it. But seeing as I actually was there and buying it, it's a little bit frustrating. But anyway, it's been a while now, so I've let that go. But anyway, the thing, I mean, this, speaking of rewatching films, this one, there are a few films that you can watch more, or that you can watch as many times as this one and keep seeing new things. You know, and obviously no pun intended, but it's an incredible film. It's you know, it works on so many levels. Not only does it have the best visual effects that I've ever seen, but you know, in terms of gore, I suppose, and creature effects, but has a really interesting story, has a great setting, great actors, great cinematography. Just the atmosphere, the atmosphere of the film is completely unlike anything. So I did rewatch it. I think I've seen it twice before, so I saw it again now, and yeah, it's even better than before. So anyway, and then this one, Extro. This is the last one of this video, a second sight release. They've really been spoiling us lately with their releases. Yeah, there's the Changeling coming up, and I talked about Heimat in the last video. What else do they have? I think they have some more stuff as well. Berlin Alexanderplatz, which I want to get. It's quite pricey. I hope to be able to get that soon. And Extro, they're an interesting company. They release Extro and Berlin Alexanderplatz at the same time. But I love that though. This is a really odd horror film, effects film, sci-fi kind of thing that makes very little sense. It's just an excuse to throw all these visual ideas and practical effects on screen and just have some fun. And this is a great release, as you can see. It's a proper release. It's a nice slipcase and a digi pack inside, and it has some new extras which I really enjoyed. We have the 1 hour long making of, or well, documentary I guess, and then a couple other featurettes. There's a new 2018 director's version. I wonder what the people over at Second Sight thinks about that, because it's a really ugly edition. Visually it just doesn't look very good. And there is an introduction by the director who said that there's a new edition, I had some fun with the colors and I changed a few things, and then he said, I'm not sure if it's better, maybe it's worse, you'll be the judge, and kind of tongue-in-cheek kind of thing. I don't think he'd be too offended if he heard that people didn't like it, but still, I wonder if Second Sight just put it on here because they didn't want to hurt his feelings, so to speak, or if they actually think it's a decent version of the film, because to me it just really doesn't look any good. I don't know why you would want to watch that unless you're a big fan of the film, or I suppose you might like the kind of more the grittier kind of cheaper look of the film, but I don't know. I just feel like if you're watching a Blu-ray, you don't really want you don't really want something like that. Anyway, the film overall is fun. I have seen this before actually, but yeah, it's nothing great. I mean, I don't think if you're not a fan of horror, then I don't think you'll really enjoy this. But I would recommend it just because of the extras. I love that that has become pretty common for these companies to gather as many people as they can who were involved with these films, and then they make new featurettes, and so you get to hear about the film after you've seen them, you know, from companies like Arrow and Indicator. And I think that's really great, because every film, even though this is not a film masterpiece, it's still, you know, it has its place in film history. It's still part of film history, even though it's not a great one. And it still deserves a proper release, I think. And it deserves to be remembered, and it deserves to be released. And I love that sometimes with these films, the documentaries are even more entertaining than the films, because it's just so much fun to see these people who, you know, may not have. I mean, because okay, so let's compare it to. Hopefully that this will make sense. Let's compare it to something like Jimmy Fallon or Jimmy Kimmel. You have these A-list celebrities coming on there. They know how to behave. They know what they can say, what they can't say. They're really used to it. They don't even have to try. And you know, I'm subscribed to those channels on YouTube, and I enjoy watching those clips. But when you have people who worked on films like these, who may not really have done a lot of interviews, you probably won't recognize them from anything else, or not a lot anyway. And I'm not necessarily talking about the director, but sometimes they find people who just like held the boom mic, or the script supervisor, or whatever. They all have their stories from set, and sometimes they're more candid and unfiltered than some of these larger celebrities, because, well, they don't have the same media, they're not used to the media in the same way, so they don't really treat it the same way. So you get these really interesting, fun, honest interviews a lot of the time on these sets, and I love that. So anyway, that's it for this time. There's still a couple more parts to come. After this, though, it's mainly DVDs. We have a lot of documentaries. There's going to be one quite long part, or possibly two short parts with documentaries. And then I have one part with a bunch of Swedish stuff as well, which there's quite a big pile of that stuff, but I'm going to be pretty quick with most of it. So we do have 2, possibly 3 more parts, but it's all documentary stuff, all Swedish films. Well, either documentary or Swedish films. So no more nice Blu-ray sets from now on, but I hope you enjoyed these parts, and if you want to keep watching, then there's a few more to go. Alright, but that's it for part 5. Thank you for watching, and see you in part 6.